Towards the end of 2020, I'd been in quite a few bands and I'd recorded quite a lot since about 2013. So at that point, it just sort of felt natural to stop being in a band or thinking in that way. It felt very natural for it just to be solo, you know. So at that point, I started writing sort of songs that I could play just on my own, you know, that I wouldn't need a backing band to reproduce. And I started nurturing those kind of songs. It's just originally just acoustic, you know, and then went back out to play a few gigs around Bristol, I think it was, and test them out. And they seemed to, you know, I seemed to be able to play them pretty well, and it was kind of a new sound for me. I think I started off with songs like Pattern Report, Points, Mystic Vistic, Where the Heart Is. I think those were the original sort of bunch of songs that I started working along those kind of lines, you know, and I started to be pretty happy with them, to be honest, and the rest sort of came naturally. And as I was making the project, you know, I think Friends in High Places came during the recording of the album, and a song called The Pale also came along once I'd started recording, which was about probably January 2020, I think. I think in each song it's a different subject for each, and I sort of hit along this notion of mixing a title that could have two meanings, you know, and one meaning would be most of the meaning of the lyrics in the song, and then the other meaning would be sort of another way you could look at the song, which is just completely the two juxtapose each other really well, and just to make it abstract, and more than anything just to make it more interesting for me, you know, particularly playing the songs live. Like in years gone by, I used to write songs that maybe were just about one thing or on one level, but then I found that they became quite boring to play because you just got used to it. And whereas if you had songs that were a bit more abstract and that you knew that there was different meanings, so every time you played it you could get a different interpretation out of it for yourself. And I think an audience can probably tell when you're enjoying it or if you find it interesting, and if you do find it interesting, then hopefully the audience will as well, you know. That's kind of what I was thinking. Songs that have been dotted around that I've had for years and years that I've just never been able to do because, you know, for whatever reason, either the setup around me, I just couldn't really produce it in that environment, or I just didn't really have the time, you know, to put into them for what I wanted. And those were kind of songs that I always thought that would be more studio based, and that I wanted to spend a lot of time in the studio working on. Songs like Everyone's Favourite Couple, Quietus, songs like that you can really experiment on, and it not just sound like everything else that you've done. And so it's quite a mix of new songs that I wrote with the intention of playing solo, along with songs that I'd written years ago, about, you know, 4 years prior, the songs that I've been high and stuff like that. But I think I promised myself that I could only do those songs as long as they all fit sort of together well and they sound reasonably similar, so that it works as a whole album really. And with the songwriting process, I thought I'd keep it reasonably the same as what I've done before, you know, what I'm used to, and just to not overcomplicate things. And that would be just me with a guitar. I think it was my Vox, the electric Vox guitar, and mainly, you know, not even, sometimes not with it plugged in, just acoustically playing and starting off with a bunch of chords that I felt like, you know, that I liked, and importantly that I remembered from like the next day or the week after, and then just worked, you know, lyrics come out quite naturally, and then you can start to shape it a little bit but not force it. I usually have like a whole list of titles as well on my notes on my phone, and I just choose one that at that time feels like it would fit. Not, you know, in an abstract way. It don't have to make perfect sense. Like, you know, as long as it feels right, then it's all right. You know? I think there is a collaboration on there which I've never done anything like that before, which is between Molly, the bass player and drummer, and a lovely lady called Tilly Chester, who is a fantastic violinist. And it was based off a bass line from Molly, and then I jammed on guitar with her on it, and then I recorded it, and we brought in Tilly just to improvise over it, and it's a really beautiful instrumental that I think is a highlight of the album, really. But it was just fun to try and do something different, and I brought in that violinist to try and add something to pretty much all the tracks, and it's really helped to find the sound that I was searching for, really, you know. Most of the songs have a lot of melody in them, you know, and that's something that, you know, from the very beginning, it's kind of instilled in me from the Beatles. And, you know, particularly McCartney, his ability to produce melody is insane, you know, and I've always tried to replicate that, or it might, you know, try and reach a level which is as good as him. But most of the tracks have that attempt at really creating a good melody in terms of the vocals. I guess it's kind of hard to choose the inspirations, like, or think about the inspirations for these songs, because obviously each one has a slightly biographical element to it from like a range of years, you know. But musically, I suppose, take little bits from everything I listen to, and that's what's partly so hard to just define one as the inspiration for like the sound of the album.